Welcome to Peds Doc Talk TV. I am Dr. Mona Amin, a board-certified pediatrician and mom, and I am talking all about immune health and immune boosters for kids. It is a question I get asked all the time. How do I make my kids not get sick? What can I give them? What about this supplement? I'm going to break it all down for you. We're going to talk about immune health and just the basics of immune health, vitamin C, zinc, and elderberry. Before we continue, make sure you hit that subscribe button because that's how you stay up to date on all of the videos I put out here on Peds Doc Talk TV. And here we go. I'm not going to be talking about essential oils or probiotics on this video. I believe probiotics deserve its own video based on the research. And in terms of essential oils, I wanted to do my own special video on essential oils. The same principles will apply for both, but there is some research behind probiotics that I want to reserve for a separate video on Peds Doc Talk TV. So everyone wants to know that magic medicine or that magic way to avoid getting sick, and including for their children. Unfortunately, it's not so easy. Our immune system is very unique and kind of complicated in a good way. There are many factors that make our immune system what it is. Let's talk about these basic things. One, genetics. I think we forget how much genetics play a role in our immune system, and unfortunately, we can't always control our genetics. The environment we live in. What region of the country do we live in? What are our exposures? Are we going to childcare? Are we in a job that is exposed to a lot of germs and a lot of human contact? The foods that we eat also play an effect, right? These are various things that have an impact on our immune system. Even in identical twins, I will sometimes see one child get sick all the time and the other child barely gets sick, and they will be in the same environment. They have same genetics, and it's just different. So there's so much we still need to learn about the immune system. So when a company is selling a supplement or a vitamin, and they say that this supplement or vitamin is going to fight the cold and you're going to have this or that or the other, you have to remember something. Supplements in the United States are not regulated by the FDA. What does that mean? That means that these companies are not submitting research or submitting articles or submitting anything to the FDA for approval. They are submitting their product onto the market, and we are trusting that company for efficacy and safety. So we have to remember when we read those claims that it says that this is going to be something you take and you won't have a cold and whatnot, that their claims are not necessarily backed up. Now, that being said, it doesn't mean that it makes it automatically unsafe. It just means that we don't know if what they're saying is actually valid. Is it something that's going to reduce your incidence of a common cold? Or is it something that's just a placebo that you take it and maybe you feel a little bit better because you're taking something? That is what we want to remind you when you take a supplement. Supplements are not necessarily a bad thing to do, but you have to remember that we are trusting the company and the brand who's releasing that supplement to say, hey, we are trusting this by putting it on the market, but there's not a federal agency looking at safety and efficacy of these supplements that are on the market. The truth is, the best immune booster is free. Yes, I know you're saying, I just want to take a pill and I do not want to get sick. I want my kid to take a vitamin and I don't want them to get sick. It's not that easy. The best things that we can do are free. I'm a pediatrician. I'm around germs all day. My husband's an ER doctor. He's around germs all the time. And our son is in childcare and he is always around sick kids. I mean, every few weeks, every week, every few days, he has a runny nose, if not a fever, if not croup, if not something. Now, I know I would wish that my son is not always sick, but how I look at it is that his body has never been exposed to these germs. There are thousands of viruses out there, and his body needs to be exposed to these to develop immunity. So I know we don't want our kids to get sick, and I think we need to do the basic things that I'll go over. But when they do get sick, I don't want you to beat yourself up over it. You didn't do anything wrong. You're doing everything right for your child. It is just inevitable that they're going to get sick, especially our childcare children, the ones that are in group settings around a lot of other children, sharing the same products, sharing the same toys. It's inevitable. A daycare can do the best they can to clean surfaces, but you can't get away from a child sneezing in another child's face. They're going to grab an object before they can have time to clean. It happens. So don't blame yourself. Don't blame other people. Illness occurs. But what can we do to help our child and their immune system? The basic fundamentals go down to sleep. Oh, I know. How are we supposed to get sleep? We're busy. We have a lot to do. We want to manage sleep as best as we can, which means prioritizing sleep. Fun, exciting things are awesome, but we need to make sure that our children are going to bed at a regular bedtime. Of course, during the holidays, we're going to have exceptions to this rule. Of course, during the summer, there may be exceptions there, but the routine and sleep priority is vital. Sleep is regenerative. It allows our body to heal. It allows the cells to turn over. It allows us to fight illness. So even at the sign of a first illness for you as an adult and for your child, I always recommend making sure we try to go to bed early. This includes for you as an adult. I know you have a lot to do, but when I'm feeling under the weather, I drink my turmeric milk. Make sure you watch my cough and cold video, and I go to bed early. If my son is not feeling well, I make sure I try to put him to bed a little bit earlier. Normally he has a 7:30 bedtime. I'll do 7:15, 7 o'clock. I'll try to wind down a little bit earlier and get some rest. Of course, children, it doesn't always work that way, that they'll sleep in, but I want him to prioritize sleep when he's unwell. This is something that you should teach your child. Hey, you're not feeling good. We need to rest our body. When you're ill, remember that it's your body telling you that you need to slow down. And as adults, I know we can sometimes be go, 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 but you need to take that rest whenever you can. If it means calling out from work, if it means reprioritizing things that you have to get done, do it so that you can prioritize sleep, because it is something that can help our immune system. Next, we have to eat a variety of foods and vegetables. I believe that this variety is not just vegetables and fruit, but it's also spices. That is why I hope that you will explore different cuisines and different cultural food, because by exploring different cultural food, you're going to introduce your child to various spices and various seasonings and various foods that can help their immune system. We know that things like garlic, turmeric, black pepper, all of those are great for our bodies because they have antioxidants and they can help fight infection. Also, vegetables and fruit are very important. So when I say vary your diet, it doesn't just mean vegetables and fruit. It means try to incorporate different cuisines into your child's diet. This is important because our immune system is very diverse, but a lot of our immune system lives in our gut. Our gut is home to a lot of immune cells. And when our gut is introduced to food, introduced to pathogens that we swallow. Just say you touch a surface and you put your hands in your mouth accidentally, right? Now those viruses or bacteria are going down into our stomach and our gut has to fight those viruses or those pathogens, right? Our gut is always working to fight infection and fight things that are coming through the GI tract. So it's important to treat our gut well by feeding it yummy, delicious variety of different foods, plants, vegetables, fruits. Varied seasonings are important. Besides fruit, vegetables, and seasoning, probiotics are really important as well. Now remember, I'm going to have an entirely different video on probiotic supplements, but I do believe probiotics have a good benefit for our gut. And you don't have to give them a probiotic supplement. You can just give them probiotic-rich foods. Examples of probiotic-rich foods are as follows. Yogurt with live active cultures. Remember, you have to look for yogurt that has the live active cultures. Live active cultures will be listed on the packaging and it'll say the different probiotic strains. Many yogurts in the United States kill off the probiotics when they go through the pasteurization. So you want to remember that they still have the live active cultures for it to be probiotic rich. Kefir is another example, tempeh, kimchi, and kombucha. These are all probiotic-rich food. My go-to for our son is kefir and also probiotic-rich yogurt. This is what we try to incorporate on a regular basis into his diet. Sometimes I try to give him kimchi and he doesn't really love it. That's okay. But I am going to expose it because these fermented veggies can really help with probiotics and introducing probiotics into the body. If your child is extremely restrictive with foods, and you'll know that, right? They just don't eat anything. You feel like they'll only eat certain things. They're not getting any vitamin D, vitamin C, probiotics. Then you can consider using supplements after talking to your child's clinician. Most of us don't recommend the need for multivitamins, but if you're feeling like your child's diet is extremely restricted, it's something that we may consider by talking to your child's clinician and figuring out where the certain nutrients may be lacking. Number 3, in terms of your basic fundamentals of immune health, reducing stress. I know. I'm also stressed. And it's really important. And again, this is stuff that will be useful for you as an adult as well. Reducing stress is vital. Stress can release cortisol, and stress can also release free radicals in our body. Free radicals can lead to inflammation in our body and subsequently illnesses. So we want to try to reduce stress as much as possible. I know sometimes focusing on reduction of stress can actually be very stressful. You're trying hard, but you have so much to do. Remember to prioritize sleep. From good sleep will come a more steady paced day. So when you get good sleep, you'll have a better day. Hopefully you won't be as stressed out. But I really encourage you to find ways to reduce stress. How can we do that for our child? Our children may not show signs of being outwardly stressed, but maybe doing things like journaling exercises for your older child, creative things like art and play can really help our children who may not verbally be telling us that they're stressed. Most toddlers and young children won't be super stressed, but for your school-age child, it's important to incorporate downtime, things that will be fostering creativity, and things that will allow their mind to relax. Things like exercise, which brings me to number 4. One of the basics for our immune health is exercise. So getting outdoors if we can, get outside to get some vitamin D, run around. Exercise helps our body function. It helps us sweat out toxins, and it also just helps us move, and movement is really good for our muscles and our brain. And lastly, hydration. Water, water, water. After 6 months, you're going to start incorporating water into meal times, but your toddler and school-age child, their primary liquid should be water when they're on the go. I encourage it. I think it's so important to raise a water lover, a child who loves water as their primary drink. It doesn't mean that you can't incorporate sugar drinks if that's what you want to do, but water should be their priority. Water helps flush out toxins and keep our cells hydrated. It's so important. And it also helps keep our mucous membranes moist. Remember, a dry throat, dry nasal passages are more likely to stick viruses. Viruses like dry nasal passages and dry throats. So if we continue to drink water throughout the day and stay hydrated, we can fight off infection. There's a quote that says the best 6 doctors are sunshine, water, rest, exercise, air, and diet. So the things that I mentioned, and what we mean by that is these are the things that can overall help us keep healthy. Now, of course, you could do everything that I'm mentioning and you're still going to get sick, because a lot of it has to do with exposure. You send your child to childcare and they come back every week, every 2 weeks with illness. You could be doing all of these things, or maybe not all of it, and your kid could still get sick. You could be doing none of this and your child never gets sick. So the immune system is complicated, and it's important to just set the foundation, but also understand that illness is sometimes inevitable and we do the best that we can. But what does the research say about multivitamins, namely zinc, vitamin C, and elderberry? First off, multivitamins are actually not routinely recommended for all children. I get this question a lot on my social media channel. Should I give my child a multivitamin? And it's so unique to each child. We don't give our son a multivitamin. We give a varied diet. We do all the things that we mentioned. Maybe in the future, we may start to do it just for, ownership over health. Sometimes I say to parents like, yeah, if you want your child to take a multivitamin so they feel like they're doing something in control of their well-being, I have no problem with it. But I don't want us to bank all of our money in multivitamins to say that that is going to be the reason my child does not get sick. Multivitamins may be recommended if your child is a restricted eater, meaning you're just feeling like they're not getting any vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D, probiotics in their diet. They just don't eat a varied diet. Then you can go ahead and give a multivitamin after speaking to your child's clinician. But remember something, multivitamins are not going to boost your child's appetite. I commonly get asked that. Well, can you give them a vitamin that boosts their appetite? No. Picky eating is separate than needing a vitamin. There's no vitamin that's going to boost your child's appetite. It may supplement the things that they may be lacking, but even the most picky of eaters still get all the basic nutrients that they need. So don't look at the vitamin as boosting the appetite. Look at it as a supplement if you want it. I usually say, look at your child. If your child is a restricted eater, or maybe if they're not, and they're not often getting sick, you don't need to give them a vitamin. If they are getting sick a lot, I want you to ask yourself, well, are they in childcare? Because maybe they're just getting exposed to germ after germ after germ. Do they just need time to get used to it? It may not be that they need a vitamin. It just may be that their body is building their immune system. And with every exposure to a virus, their immune system is going to get stronger and stronger, and it's not going to be like that every year. So use your judgment. It's okay to give a multivitamin, but remember what I said at the beginning, that these multivitamins are not regulated by the FDA. So we are just trusting the brand to say, okay, well, you're adding some of these vitamins to my body. There's no research to prove its efficacy. So we have to remember that when we choose these things for our children. What about vitamin C? Well, unfortunately, there are not a lot of studies showing vitamin C and efficacy for colds. Now, in 2013, there was a meta-analysis of 29 clinical trials. So what they do is look at multiple trials to see if maybe there is a benefit for vitamin C. In these trials, it showed a small 8% reduction in the duration of colds for adults that were taking vitamin C. These were adults that were taking 200 milligrams a day on a regular basis. In the meta-analysis for children, they noticed that children who got 1 to 2 grams a day of vitamin C had a 18% reduction in the duration of colds. And with the study, we have to remember that there are so many various factors for our immune system. What were the diets like for these children? What were the diets like for these adults? What about their environment? So based on the data that we have for vitamin C, we don't recommend that every person needs to take vitamin C supplements. This is something that the recommendation goes down to. If you feel like it benefits you, you can go ahead and take it. If you feel like you want to give your child a vitamin C supplement at a over-the-counter brand that you trust, go for it. But we don't need every child to be on a vitamin C supplement based on the data. Now, of course, more data will continue to come out, but that is also my personal recommendation. Also, you can give them vitamin C rich foods. Here's a list of vitamin C rich foods so you don't have to go to supplements if you don't want to. Some examples of vitamin C rich foods include guavas, kiwis, bell peppers, strawberries, oranges, papaya, broccoli, tomatoes, snow peas, and kale. Oh my gosh, it all sounds so good. I love vitamin C rich foods. So you can also, if you feel like your child is restricted, start to incorporate these vitamin C rich foods into their diet versus needing to do a supplement. What about zinc? There are some clinical trials in adults that show that adults who took 75 milligrams of zinc, which is a lot of zinc, had a 48% reduction of duration of a cold when taken at the onset of a cold. We need way more information for children as these studies were not conducted on children. I would also like to mention that zinc is associated with some common side effects that may not be very well tolerated. A bad taste in mouth, nausea were common symptoms that were reported from taking this high dose zinc in these clinical trials. Also, the FDA has issued a warning on intranasal, so nasal sprays that have zinc in them, because it's been associated with anosmia, which basically means loss of smell. So what do we do with our children? We definitely need more data on how much zinc would actually be beneficial. There are some multivitamins on the market by reputable brands that have zinc in them. Now, what we don't know is that value of zinc actually doing anything in the body? We don't know. And do we know if it's actually safe? I'm not so worried about safety if it's from a reputable brand, but remember at any point, anything can be recalled, right? We are trusting these companies with what we put into our bodies because there's no regulation. So we have to ask ourselves, do I want to take it? Perhaps if it's low dose from a brand that you trust, you can go ahead and give it. But we don't know and we can't trust the packaging that says we'll fight colds by 20%. Because there is no data to support that, right? This is a brand making claims that may not be supported by the literature. And that can be very frustrating as a parent. So what I'm trying to say is that it's not unsafe to do these things, but we have to remember, well, is this something that we need? Is there efficacy to this? Is it more of a placebo, like I mentioned, that I'm just giving this and my child got better? So I want you to think about that when you make decisions on what you give your child supplements of. Supplements are not necessarily dangerous, but we want to make sure that we are making the right choices for our family. Also, like I said with vitamin C, you can also incorporate zinc-rich foods into diet. So here are some examples that you can give your child if they're open to this variety of eating. Meats, shellfish, chickpeas, lentils, beans, and dairy products. Oh, that all sounds wonderful too. Remember, my point here is giving a lot of the foods that we eat is beneficial, and you may not need to give any supplements for their immune health. What about elderberry? There is so much elderberry buzz right now, and elderberry is derived from a plant that has been used for centuries. So I do believe there needs to be more research on it, and I don't completely poo-poo the benefits of elderberry because it may have some medicinal properties similar to turmeric, similar to other things, but we have to make sure that we look at safety and what the studies show as of now. Elderberry can come in many different formulations like lozenges, teas. For children, they come in gummy form or liquid form. So the research on elderberry is kind of all over the place, especially when they look at elderberry and the flu. In one study, they saw that people who took elderberry and had flu symptoms had 4 days shorter duration of symptoms. In another study, though, it showed that it was worsening their symptoms. I know, this is very frustrating. I'm attaching both of these articles in my show notes. So when the research is contradictory, it's kind of confusing, right? What do I do? How do I approach elderberry? When there aren't a lot of studies for safety and efficacy, it comes down to us trusting a company and saying, is this something that I feel as a parent where the benefits outweigh the risk? It doesn't mean that you can't do these things. I like to be very clear about this. Parents ask me about even like essential oils and all of that. And I say, look, we don't have data to support it. Does it mean that it's unsafe? Not necessarily. But for something like elderberry, I want to go over some safety precautions if this is something you end up wanting to give your child. One of the biggest risks I want to be clear about is elderberry, when prepared incorrectly or heated incorrectly, can have the risk of containing cyanide. And cyanide is not something we want a lot of in our body. So remember that if you are buying this from someone who makes this at home, or if you are making this at home, you got to be really careful that you know how to prepare elderberry. I don't know how to prepare elderberry, so I want you to be very careful on how you make this. When you're going with elderberry, my advice, since there is no research out there right now, and if it's something that you want to consider, you should go with a brand that you trust. For example, Ollie's, Zarbee's, these are all brands on the market that have a track record of being safe. That being said, it doesn't mean that it's necessarily efficacious, and we don't have research to support any of the claims these companies make because they are not FDA regulated. So that doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means that you have to remember these things when you purchase items on what you're taking for yourself with supplements or giving to your child. One of my biggest gripes with marketing for supplements, one is that a lot of online marketing for immune supplements will bash other things that are very important for our immune health, like vaccines, to sell their supplement. Don't do vaccines. They're toxic, And then they will say, well, buy my $50 supplement that I made at home or in my own pharmacy. To me, you have to understand as a consumer why that makes no sense. Vaccines are actually really good for our immune system, right? Vaccines help create a memory for the big bad illnesses we don't want our children to get. Right? Your child is still going to get the common cold. They're still going to get common viruses. But to have someone say that they're dangerous when they're not, because we are regulating them and monitoring them for safety and efficacy for years, and then selling you a supplement, you want to be very wary of that for your child. I also am very wary of packaging and marketing for supplements. When you go to the store and they say this is the number one, recommended product that's going to fight colds. Remember that it could help, right? We still need more research, but vitamin C, zinc, and elderberry, there could be benefit for us. People swear by it sometimes. But to say those claims can do one of two things. It can put false hope into these things where you feel like this is helping and I have to take more, and you end up taking more than what the package recommends. Number two is that you feel like this is something that's going to help because the packaging said that it will reduce my symptoms, and then your symptoms are not reduced and you feel like something's wrong. So you want to remember that, because marketing has a way of getting into our heads, and we want to make sure that we're looking at the big picture and also going to our clinician, going to the office if you need it, if your child's not getting better. So in summary, I am okay doing supplements if you want to, but remember, they may not be necessary for the average child. If you choose a supplement, make sure you choose a brand that is reputable, that has been on the market for many years. Also remember that gummy vitamins are delicious, but sometimes you can overdo it because it tastes like a gummy bear. So you only want to give what's recommended on the packaging. Also make sure you brush your child's teeth after giving these gummy vitamins because they can lead to an increased risk of cavities. Remember the basics of immune health that I mentioned earlier, and also the foundations of hand hygiene, washing our hands, covering our mouth and nose when we sneeze. This is what can help reduce the transmission of spreading illnesses. And lastly, remember that our kids will get sick. I know. I am a mom of a 2-year-old, and it is very hard when he gets these back-to-back illnesses. And I tell my son's childcare place, I say, look, it's frustrating. I'm tired, but I also know that he is building this awesome immune system. We can't control everything. We do the best that we can, but we also have to understand that our children will get exposed to these common viruses. So how do I handle it? I do what I mentioned with diet, with sleep, with trying to reduce stress in our family. I also give him the vaccines to help protect him against the things that we can protect against, right? Or reduce his risk against. But I also understand that illness will happen. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, make sure you comment in the comment section, hit that thumbs up sign, and subscribe to Pete's Doc Talk TV. Make sure you share this episode wherever you are on social media so everyone can know about this channel, and I'll see you next time.